Morning, guys. Exciting opportunity this weekend versus Wisconsin. This will also be the day that we induct 3 people into our Hall of Fame here at Michigan State. Eric the Flea Allen from the 70s, Steve Juday, a quarterback from '65 championship team, and then Mike Sadler, all Big Ten All-American punter who we tragically lost this past summer. So be a big weekend for us. Wisconsin, you know, is a lot like us probably in a lot of ways. You know, big game against LSU. We've had very exciting games with them. We start the Big Ten opener. All kinds of different storylines, I think, in this football game as we move forward. The games that we've had in the past with them have been great games. We've not played them since 2012. I think was the overtime game up there. Had the big games in 2011, 2 of them, championship-type game, or championship game, and then also the in-season game, which was ended on the Rocket Place. So a lot of history, recent history. Both programs have been very successful, I think, in the last number of years, and this will be an outstanding football game. As far as where we're at as a program, we took a big step, I think, this past weekend. Now we need to get ourselves back locked in and be able to, I think I must say up here, I mean, how many hundreds of times have I said we need to move forward, but I think that's the basis of who we are. We need to constantly keep trying to grind and keep trying to move this program to the next step, and that's what we'll do. So I'll take some questions, we'll go from there.
Mark, you mentioned about taking the program further, and at Notre Dame, you talked about when you got the lead, this wasn't your word, but basically conservative on offense and play defense and try to get the game out. I'm just curious, Nick Saban in his book, How Good Do You Want to Be, on page 70, referred to his mentality of that and said that he needed to change that. Is that something you need to look at as a question or a concern?
Well, when it's 36-7, I think that, you know, we took the, you know, we're not going to go back and keep talking about Notre Dame, but when it's 36-7, I think that we looked at it and said 3 minutes to go in the third quarter. Just take the air out of the ball a little bit, and but then as the game got closer, we wanted to play the game. We needed to start playing the game again when it was 14 points. But, you know, when a team, as I said earlier, when a team gets momentum like they did, much like we did in the third quarter, it's tough to stop them. So, you know, it's just the way the game flows sometimes. So, but I thought we did the things we had to do to win the football game, especially at the end, and came away with a big win.
Mark, you were asked last week about how valuable games like Notre Dame are, big game experience for your younger guys as they get used to it. So with a team like Wisconsin ranked, I believe, 11th coming in this week, is it a good thing to have these kind of games back-to-back against such tough opposition?
Well, I don't think you can, you know, I've never asked myself that question, because what difference does it make? You know, you play in the people that you play next, if they're on the schedule. They've got a great football program. I don't care whether they're ranked 11th or they're ranked not in the, or they're not ranked. You know, Wisconsin's going to present a great challenge because of the way they play. This is a tough-minded game. They play it that way. They're going to line up and do the things that they do to win, and we're going to do the same thing. So that's the way these games have always been. You should get excited for the opportunity, and I think the storylines around it being that Big Ten opener, the history with Wisconsin, the fact that where we're at as a program right now, where they're at, you know, all points towards this being a very, very big game. But probably bigger than last week. No doubt bigger than last week.
Mark, how do you take, back here, what the offense did in that 15, 20 minutes, however long stretch it was, and I guess bottle it? Is it tangible to do that for an entire game?
You're talking about the third quarter?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, that's every play is designed to be successful. Every defense is designed to be successful. You know, it's all about execution and fundamentals when you get down to it. But I think we have the capability and the athletes to do those things. There's no question in my mind.
Mark, here in the middle.
Yeah.
RJ is the one player you've got who's from the state of Wisconsin. His parents were both athletes at Wisconsin. Was that ever a factor in his recruiting? And what drew you to him initially as a player?
You know, Brad Salem recruits up there, and, you know, all you got to do is watch RJ's high school film, and you're going to be drawn to him. So we were fortunate to get involved in the recruiting process, and able to make him a Spartan, and he's had great success here. He's been a guy that's played here all 4 years, so important game for him, measure up a little bit. But it's always important whether you're from Ohio or Michigan. When you get into those games where you're playing against rivals and things of that nature, or from home states, I think it becomes a little bit more important.
Mark, when you go into a game when you're facing an opponent that kind of juggling quarterbacks, battling some injuries at key spots, how do you prepare for that, not knowing? Do you have to spend a little time on each guy, and what things do you guys expect and see in those quarterbacks?
Yeah, when you have teams that play 2 quarterbacks, I think the natural thing to do is you take and break your film up and say, okay, he's quarterbacking these plays, he's quarterbacking these plays. Is there a difference? Many times there is, maybe sometimes there's not. So you need to make that decision as you go forward and change your game plan based on who's in there and who's not.
Coach, you mentioned this week is bigger than last week. How much different is conference play, and what do you preach to the kids during the week, and what do you do different now that it is conference?
I think the out-of-conference schedule is just what it is. I mean, you can lose them and still recover and play and win a Big Ten championship, but you need to start playing a little bit more for real, I think, in terms of with the understanding that these are the things that lead you to rings, big bowl games, playoffs, those type of things. These games like this and the games that will follow. When you're playing in conference and then when you get into your division, the chips just get a little bit bigger. But that's the way it's always been here. The more you win, the higher the chips get, and the more it's on every single game. So, it's just the nature of it, I think, which is a positive thing here. It's been positive for us.
Mark, we've talked a lot about the depth at linebacker, but John Reschke, a guy he misses the first game as a guy who was a middle linebacker, battled some injuries, has moved around, and has found a spot to be a playmaker here. What does it say about him and, I guess, his way to persevere and still be a factor? John had a great game. I think he was the player of the game, no question. He's active. He's healthy right now. He's gotten healthy. So he flies around. What's it say about him? He's just a product of the environment. I think Coach Snyder's done a great job with him. Coach Tressel before that. And, he's from Brother Rice High School, played for an outstanding coach there in Alfred Casa. So those are the expectations he had when he came here. And right now he's hitting his stride. I think last year he played very well as well. But based on this last game, he stepped up in a big game on primetime situation and played extremely well. So we'll look for more good things from him.
Mark, you guys have had some big and memorable games versus Wisconsin, even going back to your first year here, I think.
Yeah.
And then 2012, the conference realigned and you lose them every year. Do you wish you still played them every year as like a divisional foe or protected crossover thing?
Well, the place is always packed one way or the other, whether they're down here or whether we're up there. They've been very close games. We've played for high stakes in those games, both times at 11. I think 12 as well, really, for us. So it's been exciting opportunities, and do I wish I don't ever sit around and say I wish we were playing this team or wish we were playing that team. It is sort of what it is. So I sort of focus on who we are playing and go from there. But they've been great football games, and they have a great fan base. There'll be a lot of Badgers down here, and it should be an exciting atmosphere.
Mark, another question about R.J. Shelton. The last time you had this much turnover at receiver, it was all kind of a new group together, and the young receivers, the other guys have played well, but you describe the value of having that staggered and having his senior year fall right now.
Yeah, you're constantly, I think, in every position, you're constantly trying to evaluate where your guys are at. Are you playing this freshman or that sophomore, and who's coming back, and you're trying to get these guys ready, so you're always turning forward and you're always moving forward with some experienced guys. RJ came in, we were a little thin. He was a tailback, recruited tailback. We moved him to wide receiver after we saw him catching the football. Really, it was just let's get him into the ABC period of wide receivers, and he caught the ball well, so we started transitioning there. And he made himself a wide receiver over the course of time. So he sort of blossomed in that respect, and we'll continue to do that with all of our players as we go. We're going to always test them and say, hey, let's try this guy over here or this guy over there and see if he can do this or that. So, but he's been, right now he's a senior, so right now he's sort of one of the guys who is the foundation of our wide receiver group.
Your weekly Ed Davis question here.
Oh, yeah.
You mentioned Reschke earlier. With Ed slowly working his way back in and guys like John and Andrew Dowell playing so well, how do you, obviously probably a thing you'd like to see, but how do you assimilate Ed back in and how can you use what they've done to kind of make his transition easier?
We'll get Ed Davis on the field. He played last week, really one play, and we just felt like, he wasn't quite there yet. But it's a week-to-week thing. It's rehab. It's all these different things that are tied together. But he did play last week, and if he's capable of playing, he will be in that football game.
Just having John and Andrew playing as well as they are, does that make it easier to transition him back in a little sooner?
Yeah, I think the more good players you have, the better it is, and the more you can spread it around a little bit and keep people fresh. And we have different packages and different things that we can do to try and get him involved.
Mark, your record against ranked teams and against ranked teams on the road as an underdog is pretty remarkable. So are experts just getting this wrong, or does something happen to your team when the lights come on?
Well, I said that Saturday night. I
saw that.
What makes an expert? I would ask that politely. What makes everybody an expert? We know what we can do. We understand who we are, and we're going to play to the best of our abilities. And if we do those things, we've got a great chance of winning every football game. And you can look back and I don't know how many games we've been here now, 130, something like that maybe. There's not too many times we've been blown out. So you probably count them on one hand. So we're not going to win every football game, but we're competitive, and I think we understand what we're doing. We understand our package, and we're able to, sort of lift ourselves up sometimes. And right now we've got a culture which expects success. And when you have that culture that expects success, good things tend to happen. And our players know their responsibilities that within that culture, which is important.
Just to follow, is there a method to building up to that fever pitch, so to speak, on game day or game night?
Yeah, I'm not a big rant and rave guy beforehand. I just tell guys, hey, you got to get with yourself, man. Yourself is the person that has to get ready. I have to get myself ready, however that is, and you have to get yourself ready. So, you're the person that has to look in the mirror at the end of the day. And you better be ready to play because you will be tested. You'll be tested at the highest level on game day. And, everybody takes that personal, I think. That's the way we've done it here. There are other guys jumping around, and I say, hey, save all that for the game. Get themselves all tired out before the game. Save all that before the game. But they know my intensity. They understand where we're at from an intensity standpoint, and that's what we have to do. We understand that. That's part of this process, having the intensity to be able to focus for 60 minutes and play every single play, whether you're ahead or behind or by a lot of points or it's close. You just got to keep playing. Play the next play. As crazy as and as dogmatic as that sounds, just play the next play. But be fundamentally sound when you do it.
Yeah, Mark, you mentioned the other night the importance of winning the turnovers. And you guys were up 3-1 and you end up outscoring them 15-0 on turnovers. That's nothing new for this program. Over the last 3 years, you guys have been the best in the Big Ten and one of the best in the nation. Is there a secret to how you guys do that so consistently?
You just don't know when the turnovers are going to come. You got to keep trying to get them. You got to coach them. You got to talk about it. You got to focus on it. You got to practice the ways of getting them. I mean, everybody in America does that. I think every coach in America understands how important turnovers are in the scope of winning or losing. We've gotten them, and we need to continue to get them as we go through our season this year. Sometimes you get in a drought a little bit, but you got to find your way out of it. Other times, they're just falling out of the sky for you. So we hope for that. But on the other end of the spectrum, ball security is so important for our offense. Where you throw the football and then how you run with the football. And we work tirelessly on that and talk about that as well. So at the end of the day, if you're +1 in turnover margin at the end of the year, you've probably won a lot of football games. And if you really look at our record and really comb through it, you'll see that when we're +2 or +1, we've won the game the majority of the time. When we're -2, the significance of that drops, 50-50.
Mark,
more or less. Sorry, Fred.
Am I next?
You're next. In
The
the back row there.
The chip on your shoulder thing used to be a kind of a media thing, but your players have adopted that, and yet you've won 40 of your last 45 games. Do you build on that mentality with your players, or are you a little tired of it?
No, I really don't. I really challenge our players. They need to challenge themselves every single day to go out and be the best. Just what I was talking about before. The chip comes to me, from internal competitiveness, to always trying to, okay, what am I going to do this week to win a football game? How am I going to enter into this fact? How am I going to enter into the equation as a player? Am I going to do my job? Okay, am I going to motivate somebody else? How can I impact somebody else? And that's what we've put our focus on. And I think along the way, there's something that irritates us along the way. I'm sure that's human nature at times, or you want to play against a football team, because they are who they are, or whatever. But I think more importantly, the thing that stays with you is that competitive nature that you got to bring every single game, every single practice. And those are the things that you learn, and as I've said this before, that you learn when you've watched our basketball team practice. You go there and you watch how they practice and the intensity that they bring to every single practice. Or when you watch us now, hopefully we bring an intensity to every single practice. We try and make it game-like conditions as much as we can, and present those problems and issues and make them think on their feet, and prepare them by giving them chaotic situations and make them react. And try and cover every single game situation, although it's almost impossible. We try, and we think up other things. So we're trying to do the very best to prepare them, but that chip has to come from within. I think if it's external, it leaves you fast. We want something that's rooted deep in you, that makes things take hold on every single game, every single practice.
The waiting period was waived for Mike's induction into the Hall of Fame. I was wondering if you know the reasoning behind that decision, and what is it going to mean to you to see this happen for him?
I would imagine the reason that was made because of the tragic events that happened. It's an honor to be here when Mike's inducted.
Mark, at the cornerback spot, Tyson Smith was in at the end of the game. He started both games for you guys. What have you seen from him that's allowed him to kind of come in a rotational situation, and what do you like to see from him moving forward?
Tyson's great athletic ability. He's very quick, got his great speed, great ball skills. He sort of rotates in there. Darren Hicks is the starter. He did start for Viante the first game for a couple plays to make a point. But he's our third corner in. He needs to continue to get better, just like all of our players. And he's young. So every game he gets increasingly better. He played last year and started some, but didn't play as much. Now he's playing more. Every game he's going to get better and better.
Mark,
more confident.
With Malik, have you seen through 2 games significant differences in how other teams are playing against him, and has he had to adapt at all to kind of being the man on the defensive line now?
I don't see people playing any different. I mean, pretty much schematically they got to block them all. But he's playing. He had a great football game. There's no huddle, so he was in and out a little bit. But I mean, the plays that he played, he was a major impact on the football game and played with great effort. So he was a difference maker.
Mark, Corey Clement's status is kind of up in the air for this game, but assuming he does play, what makes him special as a running back, and what kind of challenges does he present?
Great change of direction, is vertical, gets vertical, he's powerful, he can run, and he's a Wisconsin type back. And when they look back to all the guys that they've had in their background, in their recent history, he's like those guys. He's a difference maker.
Mark, it just struck me, we never bothered to ask you last week if there was a special name for the fake extra point. Was there anything?
Muddle huddle.
Muddle huddle?
Yeah.
And the other question was, Donnie Corley, is he just scratching the surface at this point? Are we to seeing a little bit of what this guy's
I'm
capable
sorry,
of? Donnie
I
Corley.
got stuck in the muddle huddle.
Yeah, I know.
What was the second
Asking
question?
about Donnie Corley. We're just
Donnie
scratching
Corley?
the surface at this point.
Yeah, I think Donnie is an outstanding football player. He's got big play potential. He's going to make a lot of plays for us over these next three years and 10 games. So, again, another young man that, he's just starting his career, so he'll take off. He'll continue to take off.
Mark, when you first got here, did you look at Wisconsin as a program to emulate? And as your program maybe surpasses what they have going, what programs further out there do you now look at and try and emulate?
When we came, I looked at Iowa, what Kirk Ferentz has built, and I looked at the Wisconsin program and what was built there, because they did it a hard way, where they had been down a little bit at one point and built it back up and had a consistent winning program and stability and continuity. And I thought that was one thing that we wanted to have. We wanted to have continuity here. We wanted to have strengthen a schedule and all, do the things that they had been doing, Rose Bowls and things of that nature. Now looking forward, we're up there, I guess, among some others, and we continue to try and look at programs and say, okay, they're like us in this regard. We needed to get better and do these different things. To sit there and say, okay, we want to be like this particular program. Stanford intrigues me. Okay, I think it's different than Stanford. We're different than Stanford, though, in certain areas as a university. Certainly you look at Alabama and what they've been able to do as a measuring stick as well.
Mark, here's your outside the box. It hasn't happened
Okay,
with your team yet, but twice at least this weekend, and several times recently we've seen players in the open field drop a football before they get in the end zone. I'm trying to understand the younger generation, but what is cool about dropping the football close to the goal line? And have you addressed it with your team?
Yeah, we address it. In fact, when Gerald busted his 73-yard run and he was walking in with the ball out here, it was addressed. Even though it was in his hand, you just have to cross the finish line. You got to finish. No, I don't get it, but I just think people are so excited to get there, they forget they're not just quite there yet. So that's good. Thank you.